Good morning, my name is SIa Buttan and today I will be making 5 oral presentations starting with my persuasive speech on a moral issue told to an audience of 200 adults at a TED Talk all aged between 21 years and 40 years. Feminism, a despised and shunned word in today's generation. A heinous, irksome, loathsome, misunderstood word. I am not here to talk about my rights as a woman. I just want to take 5 minutes of your time to talk about this innocent word that's been backward beyond recognition and being treated with so much ignorance and hate. What is feminism? Feminism is recognizing a woman's rights, her place in society. Creating societal norms that don't abide by patriarchal constructs so that a man and a woman can stand side by side without discrimination. Feminism. A visionary word, or at least it used to be, until we completely changed the meaning of it. Now feminism represents a new kind of strife, stereotype, and myth. All feminists are women. Feminists hate men. Feminists do not believe in religion. Feminists do not believe in marriage. All feminists are lesbians. Feminists are career women who neglect their families. Such a drastic change in only 200 years. The word with the purest intentions destroyed. Now there are many reasons for this misinterpretation. Looking back at the history of feminists, most of the prominent leaders of such movements are female. The suffragettes, Charlotte Gilman, Wilhelmine Drucker. This is one of the biggest reasons for the all feminists are women stereotype, but it isn't true. In fact, the person who coined the term feminism was male. Charles Fourier, a utopian socialist who believed that equality would lead to an ethically just society. We should be able to live in a world where a man can proudly call himself a feminist. It is just one word for, I want to support women's rights, and I'm willing to fight for them to achieve that goal. Another issue with dealing with someone who's made an offensive or sexist comment or mistreated me because I'm a girl is to hear the common refrain. I'm victimizing myself, creating a situation that does not exist. It is a common misconception that leads to the ridicule of feminists everywhere that there is equality in the world, and there is no need to fight for it. For everyone who says this, it is a feminist's job to educate you on how incorrect you are. There is equality in the world, in the civilized and educated areas. If you grew up without discrimination based on your gender, you are one of the lucky ones. But on an average around the world, women are still paid lesser than men, still overrepresented in low-ranking, menial jobs when they are capable of so much more. It's like saying, what? You like a job that you're perfectly qualified for. No, sorry, you have a different reproductive system. Now, I was one of the lucky ones. My parents supported me in everything that I've ever wanted to do, including playing football and studying for a career path of my choosing. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell that I had people tell me that football was a boys' sport, that I could get hurt if I played. I stood up to them by playing as much as I wanted, and today, ladies and gentlemen, before you, a state-level football player who's better than most of her male friends. Many people are uncomfortable with change, especially when it's regarding social conditioning and tradition. In many cultures have deep-rooted systems and beliefs that have, by design or default, predetermined a woman's place in society. In many of these cultures, a woman having rights is unheard of. The word feminism, therefore, lies vilified, all in the interest of not rocking the boat. These, according to me, are way past their sell-by date. So if someone tells me, "Ladkiyan aise nahi karte," girls don't do things like this, I feel like it's my job to educate them. Enjoy your culture and tradition as long as no one is getting hurt. Being a feminist is only going to do good for the society. And if you are not a feminist, try not to be a roadblock to equality. In the words of Gloria Steinem, I would say that each of us has only one thing to gain from the feminist movement, and that is our whole humanity. Thank you. The next speech is a farewell speech to two colleagues in front of 50 employees and staff members at an office party, all aged between 20 years to 60 years. Good evening. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this party today. Today we are losing two very valuable members of our team here at Latin Corporation. Mr. Keshav Roy and Mr. Dave Krishnan. How fast time flies. One of our most respected workers is retiring and one of our newer members is leaving. Mr. Keshav has been in this company for 45 years now and has stood by my father's side building for 30. He was my father's best friend. I remember when I was just 9 years old, Mr. Keshav came home along with his wife for dinner, and I was sent to my room to eat alone. My mother said that the dining table was only for adults who worked at the office. I was furious. I could hear them laughing and talking and enjoying themselves. So I stormed out of the room. I looked Mr. Keshav dead in the eye and I screamed, "I'm going to work in the office one day. You let me eat here." That was when my future was decided. He sat me down at the table and fed me with his own hands. So I'd just like to personally thank you. If it wasn't for you, I would have never had the courage or capacity to work here. My father had 2 children, me and his company, and you have raised both very well. I don't believe that I'm the only one who feels this way. Mr. Keshav has been a work father to all of us. He's helped us get through some challenging situations, whether they were work-related or not. We would have never made it through those long working nights if it wasn't for his motivation. And Mrs. Roy's lovely midnight chicken biryani. We live for those nights. Not only is he an extraordinary man, but he's also an incredibly hard worker. The man is 60 and can still get more work done than all of us combined. He's always smiling, never late, fun to be around, and extremely productive all at the same time. I have never heard this man complain even once in his time here. So I'd just like to say, we all aspire to be like you, and you deserve the most loving and respectful goodbye we have to offer. We will miss you. Now, we've all heard of Mr. Dave. Mr. Dave, would you like to join us in the front? No? Okay. A big hand for Mr. Dave, everyone. Mr. Dave has been in our company for a very short period of time. 4 months, I think. But even in this short period, we got a glimpse of his interesting personality. I remember when he had just joined us here, he was extremely uncomfortable with the work environment, being new to the corporate world and such. He was very shy and closed off. He would finish the day's work and leave as quickly as possible and would only talk if really necessary. But after 2 months, he started talking more and participating in the office activities more actively. I'm glad to say that I have definitely seen an improvement in your communication skills. As I said earlier, Mr. Dave is fairly new to the corporate world. So he wasn't very experienced. In the start, I could see a lot of struggle, but now I can see some amount of progress. He finally took my advice and got some help from some of our more experienced employees, and the improvement was visible. Once you got used to being in the office, it was nice to have you around. You brought a little life back into those long and intense work hours with your silly little knock-knock jokes. And though most of the time people couldn't take you seriously, it was nice to see you interacting with other members of our team. So I think I've earned the right to say that you have definitely had an impact on your personality and your skill. I hope you continue this journey of growth and find a career more suited to you and your likings. All the best to you. A big round of applause, everyone. Mr. Keshav Roy and Mr. Dave Krishnan. The next piece is a news feature told twice to an audience tuned in. Good morning, this is your host Prajakta Shetty coming to you from the Times Radio. Just this Thursday, a lawsuit was filed against Amazon for the violation of the antitrust law. The law states that any attempt to monopolize, sign contracts that lead to conspiracy, bring harm to consumers, or eliminate competitors is illegal. Jeff Bezos, the company's CEO, was called to testify in front of the US House. Many consumers and members of the House announced their concerns, stating that no one should be above the law, not even the rich and powerful. But Bezos is not only rich and powerful, but extremely smart. He managed to build the Amazon empire in such a way that he was able to find loopholes within the law. Even though Amazon is extremely large, it cannot be deemed a monopoly as it is famously unprofitable. So it isn't violating the antitrust law in terms of monopolizing. It does, however, violate that part of the law that talks about the protection of competitor companies. It is known for analyzing products and companies, copying product design, and then selling those products as their own. The fear of one company becoming so large is that they can take advantage of consumers, as they are given no other choice because of the elimination of competitor companies. The antitrust law is very closely related to consumer protection. In fact, consumer protection is one of its main clauses. Amazon supports consumer welfare by selling their products at much cheaper prices. There is a lot of argument about whether Jeff Bezos should be put in front of the antitrust committee, considering Amazon gives away its profit for gaining market share, and that is the only reason it is so big today. Amazon also encourages shop owners and retailers to sell their products on their website, so they aren't exactly eliminating competitors. They are only analyzing producers and consumers and putting forth what they feel is the best for the customer. Because of this complete paradox, the lawsuit cannot be carried forward without further examination of the case. So stay tuned for further updates. Hello, my beautiful listeners, it's Crazy Nana here, back with some stories and entertainment for you. So I'm sure we're all familiar with the company Amazon. It's that one that we blame for our weight gain ever since online shopping became a thing. But Amazon isn't only an online store, it's an empire that's only been increasing in size, to such a point that people have actually filed lawsuits against Amazon for violating the antitrust law. So basically, this antitrust law is a set of rules that make sure that these big companies are kept in control and do not take over the planet. The people responsible for this actually name themselves the Trust Busters. So when there's something weird and don't look good, who are you gonna call? Trust Busters! So these Trust Busters were called, but couldn't do much, since Amazon can't be deemed a monopoly in the first place. Our CEO Jeff Bezos decided that he would play the government's game, but by his own rules. So when accused of monopolizing, the man laughed in the interviewer's face and said, "We are a famously unprofitable company." Which is true, because Amazon literally throws away profit for gaining market share. So Amazon is a poor man living in a mansion. Now, the antitrust law is very closely related to consumer protection. So these trust busters aren't just saving the world from company dictatorship, they also cater to the individual. So if a company decides to take over the planet, they can force customers to pay abnormally high prices by eliminating competition. And our superheroes just can't allow it. So even here, Amazon does eliminate competition, but sells their products at much cheaper prices. So our CEO billionaire just can't be held accountable for anything. Just imagine how frustrated the people who filed the lawsuit must be. Okay, anyway, we'll be back after a short break for the results of the Chili Chat competition. Stay tuned. will now be delivering a sermon based on a specific text told to a group of teenagers between the ages 16 and 19 at a youth convention on International Yoga Day. Good morning. My name is SIa Buttan, and I am a disciple of the great Swami Sivananda Saraswati. Today, I am here to talk to you about how I got into the study of spirituality. Initially, I wasn't a very big believer in religion. According to me, religious events in my family were just an excuse for taking out that one piece of traditional clothing I owned. I never paid any attention to the prayers or the stories until one day my uncle noticed my disinterest and handed me a simplified version of the Bhagavad Gita and told me to read the first few chapters. Out of pure fear, I did. But today, that book is one of my greatest treasures. The Bhagavad Gita turned out to be a collection of insightful conversations that take place between Prince Arjuna and Lord Krishna in the epic Mahabharata. Arjuna was in quite a predicament on the battlefield, where he was to fight his own gurus and cousins. So he turned to Lord Krishna for guidance, and in the process of answering his questions, Krishna reveals to him the nature of consciousness, the self, and the universe, guiding Arjuna towards self-realization. I read the whole book, cover to cover. What started off as fear of a 6'3" relative turned into curiosity, wonder, and learning. I would also like to share 2 verses from this book that changed my life for the better. Bandhur atmanastasya yenatmayvat manojitaha anatmanastu shatrudve vartatmaya shatruvat. For those who have conquered the mind, it is a great asset and will be your friend. But for those who have failed to do so, the mind will be your greatest enemy. The mind is a great tool, but if you do not learn how to control it, it will soon begin to control you. We are masters at overthinking, giving too much heed to something that doesn't have that much importance. But if we learn to remain collected and balanced, we learn to stop responding drastically to external stimuli, fear, anger, attachment. Our being enters the state of stillness and our thoughts begin to deepen. And this is when we see glimpses of nature within us. This is when we begin our journey to self-realization. Mindfulness and self-awareness is the only way to achieve that stillness, and the best way to be mindful and self-aware is to meditate. This is one way to reach enlightenment, the perfect state of ananda, bliss and joy. Another verse that I felt greatly impacted me was chapter 2, verse 48. Yogastaha kuru karman, sangam tekva dhananjaya, siddhya asiddhyo samabhutva, samatvam yudhya uchyate. In this verse, Krishna asks Arjuna to perform his duties, abandoning all attachment to success and fear of failure. If we only worry about the outcome, the quality of our work suffers. We should be able to break these strings, and when we do, we enjoy our work. When we don't constantly seek reward, we find ourselves to be in a happier position. Personally, I am a very big procrastinator, and I know it. But I always assumed that I was lazy, and so did everyone else. But after reading this verse and its meaning, I found out the true reason for putting off work for a later time was that I was so terribly scared of failing. This verse addresses a bad habit that all of us are guaranteed to have because it is only human. I have never gotten over the fear of my failure. But if I tell myself that it is okay to fail, I find myself to be in a more calm and easy position, because then I am only one more failure away from success. I may not be an enlightened being, but I am happier. I have come to peace with my mind. And I suggest everyone here reads this holy book, because even if you are not a believer in God, it will restore your faith in life. Thank you. My last and final speech is a story told to a group of 25 7-year-olds at a storytelling club. Good morning, my children. I hope you all enjoyed your weekend. Yes? Okay, so now this week I have a story. It's a personal favorite of mine. Ready? Sit down, come closer. Once upon a time, along the banks of the river Ganga, there lived a clever little monkey in a tree that bore a lot of juicy mangoes. One day, a crocodile, who was very hungry, happened to stop by the tree and said, "Excuse me, kind sir, I'm very hungry. Do you have any food?" The kind and generous monkey quickly threw down some mangoes, and the crocodile gobbled them up. They were delicious, so he asked, "May I come back tomorrow for some more fruit?" The monkey happily agreed. So he came back the next day, and the next day, and the day after that, and soon the monkey and the crocodile became best friends. One day, the crocodile was talking about his family that lived at the far end of the river. "You must take some fruit back for your wife," said the monkey. "Make sure you take some back home for her today." The crocodile's wife enjoyed the mangoes so much that she made her husband promise to get her some home every day. But then she started thinking about this monkey. He eats these sweet and juicy mangoes every day. Just imagine how sweet his flesh must be. So she said to her husband, "Tell the monkey that I want to personally thank him for the lovely fruit. Invite him to our house." When the crocodile heard of his wife's devious plan, he was shocked. How could he just kill his best friend? So he began making excuses, saying, "There is no possibility of that. The monkey cannot swim." His wife realized that he was too kind to kill the monkey, so she made a story to convince her naive husband. "I'm very sick and I'm going to die. The only cure is to eat a monkey's heart." Now the crocodile was in a dilemma. He couldn't just kill his best friend who had been so kind to him and given him all that juicy fruit. But at the same time, he loved his wife and he couldn't just let her die. So he swam to the monkey's house and said, "My wife would like to personally thank you for the lovely fruit. Will you come with me to my house?" The trusting monkey jumped onto the crocodile's back and they began their journey down the river. When they reached the middle of the river, the crocodile couldn't help himself. So he said, "My wife is very sick and she's going to die soon. The only cure is to eat a monkey's heart. She will surely kill you when we get there." The monkey was shocked. He was being betrayed by his best friend. But he was very clever, so he thought quickly and said, "Oh, I would love to help you by giving you my heart, but I wish you'd told me earlier. We monkeys don't keep our hearts with us. Mine is kept in a safe place in the mango tree. So swim back quickly if you want to save your wife." The crocodile got very happy when he heard this, because he realized he could save his wife, and at the same time, he did not have to kill his best friend. So he swam back to the tree, and the monkey jumped up with safety. "What are you doing? Quickly, go get your heart. We must save my wife." "I trusted you, and you betrayed me. Go back to your wife. I never want to see you again." The crocodile had to go home empty-handed, but at the same time, he lost his best friend. The end. So did everyone enjoy the story? Yes? Okay, well, there goes the bell. Okay, up everyone. I will see you all next week. Thank you. I will now be moving on to my reflection task, starting with my performance program. A definite starting point for me was when I finished the grade 8. I was told that the ATCL would be the best way for me to go next. When I looked at all the speeches we were to choose from, I think the persuasive speech was the one that called out to me the most, because at that time the word feminism was going around like it was a really, really bad word. As a child, I was always told to keep my political views and views on equality to myself because it was considered almost dangerous to call yourself a feminist outside the house in public because of the riots and the fights that would get started solely for a word and solely because of a misunderstanding. So I actually went home and researched the word because I honestly thought that this was the bad F word everyone was talking about. But when I realized what it meant, it bothered me so much that such a virtuous and nice word was being treated so badly. And it was just our fault that we never actually looked it up. So I felt like this was a good platform for me to safely discuss my views on feminism without actually my gender being any sort of a hurdle. So when I looked at the speech, I did like a lot of research, and I made sure that everything I had in my speech was factually correct. And as for the character, I think I was being entirely myself because I do have very strong views on feminism, and I have been bullied a lot for calling myself a feminist, all because of one misconception and the unwillingness of people to actually look up what the word means. Then I did call a few people who knew a lot about this or had spoken about this, and I got a lot of information on it, and I made sure that I went through every riot and every fight as much as possible to actually show the strength of this word. I wanted to put out that it's not just a bad word, the word in itself has strength. So I moved on to the sermon after this because I actually do have an uncle who once got me fast asleep at a puja at a religious event in my house, and he explained to me the importance of listening to these stories and prayers even if I didn't believe in God. He told me that all of these stories and prayers had morals, and those morals would help me later on in life. So when I saw this, I immediately gave him a call, and he explained to me a few verses from the Bhagavad Gita, and I picked what I felt impacted me the most and I related to the most, and personally what I would like to share with the rest of the world, and I think this was the perfect platform for it. I have been to a youth yoga center once, and I've seen the audience, so I was a little familiar with that. And as for the character, I think I was trying to portray what my uncle the way my uncle explained it to me, I was trying to explain it to the audience. For the news feature, I think that was the most amount of research I had done out of all of the 5 speeches, because the concept of radio is becoming more and more obsolete in today's world, and actually having to sit and listen to multiple talk shows to understand what my character would be like, what both my characters would be like, that took a lot of research, and even to make sure that everything I had in those speeches were factually correct. Then I moved on to my story. I used to go for a storytelling club, so again my character was based on my storytelling teacher. She would get these little puppets that would definitely keep our attention throughout the class, and I know for a fact that keeping a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old's attention for a really long time is extremely hard. So when there's visual presentation, the child is actually attracted to your story and tends to listen better. I have also actually volunteered to do a storytelling at a children's center once with a few of my friends. So I had an idea of how children react when you walk into a classroom and how big the classroom is and the way the children look at you. So I personally put myself back into that time and looked at the children the way I looked at them at that time. This did take a lot of planning because I wasn't sure about what speeches I wanted to pick because I had ideas for all of them. But I started with the ones that called out to me the most and then went through them until I picked my 5, and then I would give them each a week to make sure that I'm giving each enough time to write down and make sure all of my facts were correct and everything I said would actually have some amount of power to it. So this was not just an exam for me. I think this is a platform where I was given the chance to freely speak, and I feel like that was a great opportunity. I made sure that each of my characters were very distinct, so I based them on real people. As I said, the feminism speech was entirely me. For the sermon, I was trying to be my uncle. For the news feature, I did research on different talk show hosts, and for the story, I was my teacher. I did learn a lot more than I thought that was around these topics when I did the research, and I felt like it was another opportunity for me to learn, and I'd love to learn more given the opportunity. I will now be moving on to personal response, challenge, and reflection. So, I have ADHD, which is an attention deficiency hyperactive disorder, which is not really that bad because most of the teenagers in the world have it, and it's never actually posed as a hurdle until you are told to stand still and listen to yourself talk. So I think that was one of my biggest hurdles because I would memorize the speech, but even if I made a single mistake during the speech, I was never able to move forward. I would always get stuck in that place and overthink that place, and then the whole speech would get ruined. So learning to calm myself down, keep myself centered and focus on my voice was definitely a difficult point for me. But after I got control of it, it was almost a strength because I realized that I do have a lot of control over my mind and body, and that was definitely one of the high grounds of this exam. So I wanted to give more time to the ATCL, but I was unable to, and I really wish that if I do approach a similar challenge later in the future, that I'm more organized and I time myself well with all of the speeches, because I know for a fact that I can do better, and if I did put more time in, I would have done better. So next time, I would definitely be more organized, have a timetable planned. I made sure that everything I said was articulate and I was speaking well and not stuttering. It was definitely difficult to keep my tone different for each of the characters, to actually form a distinction between each of the characters. I needed to maintain a pitch because when I tried to speak loudly, sometimes my voice would become higher pitched, and that was definitely a problem. So even if I wanted to maintain the same tone, I had to learn how to project my voice, especially when you're talking to an audience of 200 adults. That's the time where you actually need to project. So a TED Talk, when you watch people on TED Talks, they have to project their voices to a very, very large audience. It was the same for the sermon, and I think that was definitely something that I learned, and it is valuable for me even later on in life when I do public speaking. Then for the staging, I made sure that I had kept the main area as open as possible so the presentation was very visible. I made sure that all of my props were kept in an order so that I would not stumble and I would maintain a flow throughout. So everything was made according to the speeches, everything was put aside according to the speeches. And I also made sure that all the props I had matched the speech properly. So while working through this, I think I've definitely found that I have a good talent in public speaking, and I did not know this earlier, and I would like to pursue this forward. I'll now be moving on to health and safety. During this corona time, definitely we had to keep everything sanitized and well cleaned, and especially during physical classes, I used to use public transport, so making sure that I did not touch anything on the way and from classes was a challenge. Making sure everything was sanitized and all the props that were used in the room were kept sanitized, so anyone else who touched them, it wouldn't be a problem later on. And even getting used to the room as such, because whenever we give an exam in this room, it's usually facing the other way. So getting used to the room itself was a little confusing because the examiner usually sits here. And I did exercise a lot because my stamina went down during the lockdown period because we were made to sit at home. But I started exercising so I could maintain my stamina, so I could stand for 25 minutes in a go, and I would not lose my breath talking for 25 minutes. The ATCL did really help me find my focus and my center, and it did help me discover that the positive points of myself. I realized that I'm much stronger than I thought I was, and if I was given an opportunity like this, I would definitely go for it. Thank you.